next to him, and Darryl runs logistics executive, one of the best consulting companies, recruitment and consulting companies in supply chain. Darryl comes previously from a lot of other companies, including Ansett and TNT, and obviously McKinsey Consulting. Next to Jaya is Jim Lim. He has kind of a breadth of experience in manufacturing, shipping, third-party logistics. So he has been a shipper himself as well as on the logistics side of the world. So obviously he has done both the roles very well. He comes with a lot of past from recently from NSD, he's at Cousins. I know him since his history days when he was doing procurement there. And then obviously we have Jimmy Lim, we have Leon Chuncheng today. This is my first kind of introduction to Leon. Very pleased, a lot of experience coming from DWT, DGL, chairman of Singapore Thai Chamber of Commerce, and as well as the personality in 3PL world in Singapore. So good to have you guys. Thank you very much. With that introduction, I will hand over to each and every panel to give you a 2-minute pitch on the current subject and what's your part.
Yeah, on this topic, I think it's overkill. It's overkill for many years because it shows that how difficult to get it right. As far as partnership with whether logistic partners or internal and external. Yeah, I think it's an overkill topic. We never found the chemistry how to make it right. We probably don't ask the yellow, brown, green, we probably point the finger at the shippers for a variety of reasons and vice versa. And I think it got to do a lot with 2 aspects. One is how the shippers are self-organized and know what we want to do. Strategically, do we know what we want to do, and are we aligned in our strategies, right? I don't think, over the years at least, I've seen many similar players, similar partners, shippers on the shipper side, who may not have pretty aligned well. And over at the partners, logistics side, whether the yellow, brown, or greens, I think over on the other side, they are unable to also present a very aligned roadmap of a lot of things. The bigger they get, the more dysfunctional they get, the fragmented in the approach to us. So I think it's really a challenge for both parties, each can point a finger. I can go on the list of saying what are the problems. The question is how do we really move forward very collaboratively, right? I think one of the biggest dynamic now is because of all whatever we spoke in the morning, there's no such thing as forwarders anymore in the future world. The ecosystem has moved away from forwarders to work directly with airlines, carriers, and so on and so forth, right? We're talking about many players talk about. So the role of that particular middle partners, I think, is diminished. So a reinventing of leadership is necessary. I think the chemistry, or rather the silver bullet, is how can the both teams reinvent that leadership, reinvent the strategy, and how we work together. That would be a game changer, honestly. If we can figure a way, and through technology, that would be an enabler, right? That's the way my short summary.
Thanks, Sanjay, and thanks for the kind introduction. Is there anyone in the room from Emirates? No? No hands up from Emirates? If you are, then I apologise. Look, I missed this morning's session. My flight was late from Dubai, but so I apologise if I'm covering old ground, and I find it kind of ironic that we've got a shipper at one end of the table and a 3PL at the other, and Jim and I are here in the middle, because I think that sort of... Oh, okay, there you go. Well, I think it's symbolic of the relationship that shippers and 3PLs have. I mean, they want to be at the same table, but they tend to both be at different ends of it. I'm going to just interject something else to think about. You know, we've got this topic which is rethinking the norms of partnerships within an LSP environment. I mean, we're about to see significant shifts and changes in Asia. OECD 2010, 1.8 billion middle-class consumers in the world. 2030, 4.9 billion. 85% of that growth will come from Asia. 85%. That's massive consumer wealth distribution shifts. We've got 500 million households in Asia which will receive electricity or have access to electricity for the first time ever in the next 9 years. Just 9 years. And that may sound like really staggering numbers, but multiply that by the fact that what that actually means is washers, dryers, ovens, televisions for the first time. Mobile phones for the first time, because now they've got a way of charging them. And many of those consumers have never been anywhere near a shopping mall. And so their first point of engagement with a laptop or a computer is not the evolution that we've all been through. We started on a green screen in my days, And Jim, I'm sure you were the same, right? We progressed up to a desktop, and then we had this wonderful thing called Windows 95. Now we're dealing with mobile technology, which for the first time, our entry point is the mobile phones that sit on our pockets. And so our new consumers don't know any different. So our supply chains are shifting radically to accommodate that. And to be perfectly frank, the shippers are trying to play catch up to that. The 3PLs are playing the backward game of responding to tenders. We have FTAs, we have impact of dynamic manufacturing, and of course now we have this rush for consolidation in the LSP industry through mergers and acquisitions because A, the dollar's right, B, the US northern economy is starting to show some signs of rebound, and we've got significant growth. So in summary, I think, you know, if we're not rethinking the norms of our partnerships, we certainly should be, or we'll be redundant come 3 or 4 years' time.
So partnership is the key, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I think I'm in the middle, sitting in the middle, so I'm like a marriage between the provider and probably the customer, but I think beyond just the RFQs, the handshakes and the agreements, you have to look at the bigger things, the bigger scheme of things. I believe truly, yes, I came from the 3PL side, I grew up there, you know, being the service provider, supporting the customer's end. But I think at the 3PL side, they are also evolving, right? Whether is it from the product, from the markets they cover, as well as some of the services that value adds that they are trying to quantify, right? When it comes to the RFQ, RFI. But do they really know where they are heading? Where's the end in mind? What's the strategy that they are deploying to the customer? And more important, do they really have the intent to have this intimate partnership, right? Because today, I think, having come from technology, which is a very commoditized type of industry for the service providers, to now in the pharma, healthcare industry, it's a longer relationship, it's more sustainable, but then, you know, how do the collaboration take place? How when we say we are here for the strategic, for the long term, what do we mean by that, right? So different schools of thoughts and different definitions, both from each end, the provider, the 3PL, and the customers. So how do you merit this? And I think this has been an ongoing debate for many years. I don't think we can get it right, but I think with the omni-channel, with the Internet of Things, things are, you know, the knowledge management of things is becoming more obvious now. You know, people know that, yes, you're right, no, I agree with you, but then does it reflect on the contracts that you sign on? Yeah. Great.
Actually, this is the first time I feel so naked up here. I'm the only 3PL, and, but I know that for the audience there's a lot of 3PL. So later I throw some questions to them to tell the answer. But the issue now is all this stuff that we saw today this morning. Everything has become tighter, everything has become knowledge-based, more information-driven, and more vertically integrated, right? But the key thing is that for 3PL, we are still answerable to the bottom line. So we have to check, you know, we have to see if all the 3PLs or all the provider, maybe the old staff holder, all to move towards the solution selling. One to move towards a more integrated and more strategic partnership with the shipper. But the problem is that, I mean, most of the time shipper will say strategic, but come to the end, you know, from the activity base, from the cost plus, after they move into the activity base. That's where, you know, basically, you know, low tide, you know, all the naked tide will appear. So it's a joint investment you're looking at. So, you know, partnership, long term, the fact that the market become more complex, both relationships will be tighter. So moving from transactional to a more strategic relationship, both in terms of services, investment, and also in terms of actually a commitment for the long term. And also be very open about what you're heading towards. That's very important. I mean, the one I most enjoy the most, I work with many 3PLs, and in fact, out of the 4 or 5 3PLs I worked before, two of them now, I mean, two of them got bought up, I mean, in one time or another. So basically, they also went through a lot of consolidation, and in this kind of environment, actually, also the shipper will ask, you know, if I want this guy for long term, is he here to stay? So that is also some of the questions that as a shipper will need to ask. So how to move from seemingly transactional to a strategic relationship, and the level of investment and the level of commitment moving towards the same direction.
very good views, right? One person says reinventing the wheel right from beginning. Direct feels significant change in the middle class and obviously bringing to a partner. So kind of scared after 15 years of 3PL evolution in APAC. Today the 3PL revenue is about $250 billion, which is the highest, even higher than America and Europe. We're growing at 16 to 20% for the last 5 years, as per the IDC statistics. And still we are having an opening here that we need to reinvent the wheel after 15 years, and we need to kind of collaborate. So then it brings it, why do we go to a 3PL? And I would ask that question to Jaya as a shipper. What is the value that an organization sees to go to a 3PL? What are the factors?
I'm still wondering. Anyway.
Oh, you might want to respond to that.
Joke aside, I mean, there's an evolution, right? In the beginning stage, you wanted to outsource. And then over time, you want to commoditize what you want to give off. You want to focus on your core and non-core. I mean, that's the traditional approach. But as we move along, I think we want to move to the 3PL because we want to get what you call value-added services. And what do you mean by this? This word is again overkill. We use it very often, but what do we mean by you want to get value-added service from the partners? How do they... See, there are two stages in the relationship as far as I'm concerned. One is you enable, you are enabler, right? And then the other second phase, when you mature, you become a multiplier. So the 1 plus 1 becomes 3. And the 1 plus 1 becomes 3 is how does the partner can co-invest for technology, certain tools that help you to be a multiplier of the whole equation. And to do that, I've said it in a very philosophical way. It sounds very simple, but if you look at, let's take a specific example of optimization, right? There are certain optimization, whether domestically or internationally, it's quite difficult to do within the shippers community. You want to have a common platform. I mean, we have evolution over it. Of course, HP has moved with GT Nexus over the years. But after GT Nexus, when you have a lot of data that coming to the 3PL can actually help us do quite a lot of work together with us, using the various technology and tools that he has. The question is whether he has those tools that speak to the same language from a platform perspective to do the multiplying effect, right? And that's where it's a bit challenging, and it's not to blame, I don't want to blame the 3PL by itself because I think it's co-creation together. That's one example. The other more advanced thing is FTAs. Today, of course, obviously you know, with all the ASEAN, Asia Road Network, FTAs that deal with China, those are areas that very interestingly the partners can help us a lot. Help a lot in areas that we never normally use them. Let me give you an example. Tactical lobbying. Tactical lobbying at the ground, strategic lobbying is done by people like the customer itself. We also do strategic lobbying. But at tactical lobbying, when you go and talk to the local authorities and find out insider what's happening and try to help us out, those tactical lobbying is really valuable. That makes a difference. So when you do an RFP between A and B, those appear something else. You cannot attach a dollar to it, right? So I just give you an example. There's totally nothing to do with cost. And those are tactical lobbying abilities that the partner has or not. You know? So I'm going to stop here, but there's a lot of talk that I'm going to pass it on.
Yeah, I can say there are many 3PLs. You want a customer ready to put your service and value. You got a customer ready there. I will go over to Leon and see what is your views on what Jaya mentioned. Right? Do you guys really agree, or there's a lot of value in 3PL?
Yeah, actually, the key thing is to grow together with the customers. I mean, as Jaya mentioned, the value-added service part of it. And the 3PL must be willing to move outside even their current realm of services. For example, in the case, my company, basic medium-sized company, which have the kind of flexibility to do that. We move from, for example, on a US customer, we move from starting with a freight forwarding business, moving to warehousing for finished goods, moving to the material warehousing, and then after that we move into some value-added service which involve manufacturing, things like epoxy painting for the parts, return parts, do some sort of sandblasting, do wooden case packing. We have a workshop in the office, in the warehouse itself. We also do procurement, we do a host of other things, which if you go to the traditional 3PL business, I mean, like I went to my ex-bosses, I mean, for the US company and Australian company, basically a lot of scopes, basically you're doing something very different. So there's something that, so what is talking about long-term strategic partnership, like what Jay mentioned. You're willing to move beyond the realm of the services you are providing for today and move on and move together with customers. I've seen even one of the US company I represented last time, basically, I went in the middle of winter to North Dakota. I'm sure even a lot of Americans have to go to North Dakota. I landed at Bismarck in the middle of the winter. So they would have hell Singaporean go there, to go there. But actually that company run a whole plant for one of the experienced company. They're doing manufacturing for them. But actually they are providing a total solution for them, basically all the way from manufacturing to the whole supply chain. So they are willing to move beyond just pure moving goods from point A to point B and stuff like that.
Sanjay, I'm just going to interject. I think the key word over here that I heard, actually from both parties, was enable. And I think one of the things we lose sight of, and probably the elephant in the room, and I think you said there were 3PLs in the room, right, is, we really should be looking to outsource our operations for really 3 reasons. Can we do business smarter and more effectively with the business partner we're going to partner with? That's one. Can we get to and expand our markets and drive additional growth because they will bring extra capacity or extra abilities that we don't have internally into the business and allow us to reach those markets and that growth? And can we do it more efficiently through the deployment of their assets and their investments that they've made in their core business that are non-core to us? And I think that's what Joe was saying in terms of enable. Can they enable? The problem is this, that we see when we manage RFQs for our customers, we start with a job scope that looks like that, put all that in the RFQ, and by the time we get down to negotiating with the 3PL, guess where we've ended up? And it's all around where that calculator sits, and we've diminished all of that value, and we've lost sight of that.
That's a big point, and I'll come to you with a question later. I just want to relate this. If anyone has any question until now on this point, you can raise your hand and ask a question. Yes, Tom. Actually, you're not allowed to ask questions. Please go ahead, Tom. Sorry.
So this is more a question for the panelists as well as the audience as well.
Dom, it was the All Blacks that won, mate. That's what you're asking.
Thanks for that, mate. I notice, especially for this topic here today, I haven't heard the word trust mentioned once. And I know in the audience we've got P&G, and they've got a fantastic program called Achieving Results Through Trust. As one of the programs across many of the shippers out there, But from my perspective, and I can speak now as an independent because I am, and I'm quite fortunate to be in this position where I've been through the whole 3PL service provider path, and shippers use 3PLs because it's their core business and they want to get some value for the innovation they provide. The question I'm asking is, are they getting it? On the flip side, from the on the shipper side, again, focusing back onto core business and so forth, that's great, but they use 3PLs because they don't have those expertise themselves. But on the flip side, they try to commoditize that service so far that it bleeds from both parties. So I wouldn't mind hearing your views on that and how best can we actually get the trust back into that whole factor.
I think I'll give this question to Jim first because he has been a shipper and 3PL as well.
So I wrote a couple of points, right, Dominic? It's openness, quote unquote trust, having some form or level of measurement, so you know that you're achieving your aim, and probably governance and some process. But I think beyond that, it's a people business, right? So you have to get to know the people, you have to understand it, and then you build that relationship, that trust. And also, I think it's also proven track record. And all that is, all those many factors that you decide whether you want to outsource, you want to give that business away, right, for a given price. And it's also having that belief that the 3PL over time will know and have the expertise and learn to do that thing over and over again, having a lot of customers that does that, able to lower the cost of serve, right? Cost of total cost ownership, and therefore, when I'm in the procurement side of things or in the supply chain operation part of it, I have that trust, that belief that you're going to do it better, and therefore that years of relationship or the contract extends. So I think that is the fundamental piece of that partnership. But beyond that, it's also a lot of not just going through the motion of RFQ, performance appraisals, QBRs, but having some sort of whiteboard sessions or round tables like what we're having here, having that openness to say, this is what I've heard from my other counterparts or my peers, say you are in HP and you got Dell that's doing the same business, and that's what Dell is doing. What can you kind of come to the table and contribute? So it's saying that we want you to do ABC, activity costing models, etc. But beyond that ABC, what else do you want to bring to the table? And I think we kind of commoditize that because we have to have some standards in doing procurement, right? So that's how procurement came in. But beyond that, it's also trying to go beyond how do you get from good to better. And I think that it takes a bit of relationship fallout before you go into a long-term marriage, so to speak.
Yeah, Dom, my personal experience is, and we have worked together for 5 years, right? When you were Victor, services. My personal feeling, and I'm not trying to advocate this, but if you're in supply chain, if you're handling RFQs with procurement sitting outside, with procurement not having ownership, that's a different relationship and different business engagement. If I'm controlling RFQs, if I'm going to negotiate cost, maybe number 6, number 7 on the diagram, right? We will tick boxes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if you have a corporate purchasing or something function which sits outside of supply chain, with only one KPI, 10% cost reduction year over year, then everything else takes the back seat and just cost takes the forward seat there. And that is where probably you have a murky vision where you lose innovation and you are ready to go. That could be my take on that. And Jay has a perspective from you.
No, I agree with you. Great. The point you mentioned trust, so I thought of sharing with you guys because this topic came up more often. So trust in our organization, when I talk to the partners, basically it's a formula. Our formula is basically trust equals to results and deliverables. That's a basic thing. You can deliver, you got competency to deliver, then we talk about trust. So that's the first thing. You can't deliver, then don't even talk, right? You forget about it. So that's the first formula. Plus what we call mutual value and interest. Basically what it means is that the partner should feel that I have his interest at stake. Although it's quite difficult to practice, right? It's a scale of 1 to 10, depends where you're going to be. And mutually, I should know that when he delivers my products, he will deliver it to the best of his ability, not because I just dump it, I close the POD and then I walk away, right? So the we call it mutual value interest. Plus, the third one is growth. So three parts of it. Number 1, result competency, plus MVI, plus growth. If the relationship can grow, trust will be built. If the relationship can't grow, either from a dollar value or from a size perspective, a depth perspective, if it doesn't grow, it's stagnant over time, it's going to be very difficult. It's very difficult to... That's why you heard husband and wife saying, let's have a kid, your marriage grows. Right? It's not always going to be a challenge. I mean, let's face facts. But you transplant some of these psychological principles into a relationship with a partner, that's a formula. That formula needs to exist. If that formula doesn't exist in some fashion, form or fashion, it's going to be a strained relationship. So I just wanted to share the trust concept.
I think I agree with that. So coming back to Daryl's earlier question, we had a 3-point kind of formula that you mentioned. Where innovation figures in that? And do you think innovation is the charge of the shipper responsibility, or we can actually contribute to that from the innovation perspective?
Innovation is great, but who's going to pay for it? And that's the biggest challenge. Remember, it's really interesting. We're doing a piece of work in the Middle East at the moment for a large-scale 3PL that is very, very strong in one particular vertical sector. They've been in that sector for many decades. They own that sector. They have a lot of systems, technology that drive the value for their customers in that one sector. And the piece of work they've asked us to do is to do 2 pieces of research around what are the new verticals that they should be entering in the UAE, and likewise for Saudi Arabia. And one of the conversations that took place over the weekend was, because the job scope was quite narrow, please tell us the high value sectors that we should be investing in and compete in because we need to diversify our business. When actually the real answer is, what are the assets that I currently have in my present business today that can be further deployed into my market that I already own, but further upstream and downstream my customer? So what are the pieces that my customer are currently doing today that actually are non-core to them? Not the boxes in, boxes out, the rekitting, all the other bits and pieces that they do, but what are those real specialist things that I can extend my investments into in an environment whereby my customer already trusts me, my market already recognises me for my expertise and my skills and the knowledge and experience that I bring to it for that sector and that sector alone. And when we did that, we actually found there was capacity to grow that business by more than 60%. And when we sat with their customers on, get my days of the week, on Sunday, and we had 3 of their customers in a room, and we asked them the same question, what they wanted to see from the 3PL. Out of the 6 or 7 things that we had identified, the customers identified more than 50% of those activities, saying we'd really like our provider to do A, B, C, and D. And we know that's not boxes in, and we know that's not supply chain, but we think we can give that to you. We trust you, we know your technology works in this area, and we think that you'd do it better than we can do. And so, I think we need to rethink the way we do things.
Yeah, it's not about exact dollars. It's not about innovation for just for the sake of innovation, but innovating, understanding the business of the shipper, right? Trying to grow the economies and trying to grow and innovative solutions. So, what's your view on that as DPL? I'm sure you would have done some innovation for which you have saved some money for the shipper.
Yeah, I think for me, if you want to choose the shipper that I want to work with that can have a long-term relationship with me, I try to choose shipper that basically need a lot of customization. I mean, like freight forwarding versus maybe factory logistics. Factory logistics, there's a lot more value added, a lot more customization versus pure freight forwarding and just lane by lane. So I think basically we have to choose the area we focus on. And maybe the area also you have really a true domain, as what you mentioned. The guy is very good in the sector. And you can build long-term technology that really can show value for the user. So I think we have to, choose the pitch we are going to fight. That's very important.
Yeah.
So it's the pitch and the service that you want to provide.
Yeah.
I think in a lot of situations, the outsource partner, we don't call it just freight forwarder or 3PL, tends to kind of fake it until you make it, right? You tend to say yes, yes, yes in front of presentation, the face-to-face. So there's an enrollment when you come in, you sell your company, you do your pitch for 10 minutes,
I can do everything.
And I can do everything, Oh, don't worry, all the criteria that you want, even innovation, which is maybe 10% of the RFQ weightage, I can do it, right?
Yeah.
And then when it comes to, when it comes to the grind, then things show up, right? Whether is it the piloting, the proof to the concept. And I think that's where, I think today a lot of companies have, customers, right, become smarter, right? They tend to say, okay, enough of inviting 15 service providers, let's invite 4. And I think these 4 have some form of truth or whatever, and the facts are on the table. And I think it's becoming more a science. And I think 10 years ago it was an art, right? Who can sell the best, who can keep you company during the hard and soft days. You are my partner for life, right?
So finally after 15 years you see scientific and some balance
it's a learning, right?
And we talk about innovation from here, right? Which is the next phase.
Yeah.
Coming back to Darius' earlier point, the middle class domain, how much China effect has on people growth in Asia? This is going to contribute a lot, or we need to shift away from that last mile delivery issues and how people can do about it?
3 points. The 5-year growth guidance plan came out last week, right, from China. It used to be a plan, it's now a guidance. 6.5% growth still today, believe it or not believe, but let's take a percentage point off that, and we've still got some of the strongest growth in the world. 2025, 200 cities with more than 1 million people in it. They're new cities. And this e-commerce, 500 million households, of which 50% of those sit in China, connected to power for the first time. That's an enormous domestic market. The fastest e-commerce growth in the world is in China. It's surpassed North America this year. It will, the e-commerce growth in Asia, full stop, and I'm not sure if the presenters covered this morning, I'm sure they probably touched on it, but e-commerce growth in Asia will double in the next 2 years. In the next 2 years. It's already, if you take North America, if you take the Americas, Europe and Asia, we're already now the largest e-commerce market in the world. We will double the size of that to $1.5 trillion in 2 years. Much of that growth comes from China, so it's very important.
Okay. So Leah, from a partnership and collaboration perspective, what are the problems you feel that DPL faces with the shipper? Does the shipper really walk the talk, or it is very superfluous? How do you feel?
I think basically I deal with different kinds of shippers. Some of them are basically, they're seemingly very strategic, but ultimately you come to the bidding, right? Basically become very transactional. But we do have shippers that deal with stuff from greenfield, like especially in China. We deal with some American company, consumer product that basically start with greenfield. We go in more on consultant. Basically, we do network studies and stuff like that. And then maybe at the same time, I happen to craft the RFQ. We might actually basically out of that, after that, when they outsource, we only get maybe 30% of the whole business. But I think I enjoy those more because I think they're very open, they're sharing lots of ideas. And we in turn also share with them the best practices in the market. I think moving forward with all the Internet of Things and stuff like that, we got, as a shipper, you got to choose partners that really know the business. That's very important, rather than salesmanship. Also choose a partner that already have the resources and also have the infrastructure to support and to roll out quickly. And I just want to have a more balanced view because I believe that I think it's moving towards more specialization and with domain knowledge kind of selection.
Great. Any questions from anything else? I just turn over. Oh, guys, a lot of people here. A lot of shippers today.
Richard from DPD. Richard from DPD. I mean, you want to maybe say something from a provider point of view?
My presentation is next.
Oh, it's next? All right.
Steal his thunder.
So you can't go away.
Yeah, look, I keep coming back to this theme that is written on the top of my thing, rethinking the 3PL relationship. I think one of the keys is the 3PLs need to start thinking about themselves not as logistics service providers, but as BPOs. And I think the shippers need to start doing the same. And the closer we get to that BPO concept, we start looking inside our businesses and saying, what is it actually we need to enable our growth? What do we need to do to unlock our markets? What are the pieces of our business that we need to re-engineer, and who are the appropriate partners to help us do that? It's simple as that.
Yeah, so that means there is a business opportunity for a consulting company to come and start a business to respectively and something together. You can do that actually. Yes, any questions? Otherwise, yes, Max.
I have a question. You are talking about collaborating. We are talking about collaborating with the customers. I've seen that the oil price has been dropping, but I never see the 3PL collaborating with the person who's in charge of the oil price to bring it down.
I sent some boxes to the Philippines and I got a fuel surcharge the other day, and I'm sitting there going, seriously?
This question will go for a long debate discussion. Let me go to beyond first. And I think use prices to these customers because the beyond is going on.
Most of the transportation contract there is fuel adjustment formulas. So if the fuel went down, basically, I mean, the 3PL company have to rebate to you. So you don't have such clause, you better go and approach the guy that there's market practice. So there's really a clause, really, fuel adjustment clause.
Sure. Yeah. Max, apart from DHL and FedEx, they do have their own guidance. That's on the web, and we did that in terms of very well. Over a period of 4 quarters, they kept on reducing the fuel surcharge almost every quarter. And we gained quite a lot of money back from DHL actually. So they do it, FedEx does that very well. Jaya, I want to hear your views on that.
The first thing about this oil prices is that I don't think it will automatically come back and give you the dollar and cents, simply unless it's inside the contract based on certain mechanism, right? Then you attach certain index and you bring it down. If not for that, chances are they will not. That's number one. Number two, that's what we experienced. Number two, we have gone back to some forwarders and they said no to us. The initial reaction was these guys were not cooperating. They are not cooperating, not bringing down the price. The bunker rate is so obvious, down to less than $50, so on and so forth. But after more, when sanity came into the organization, within our organization, we started to find out why, and we did more discussion with some of the key players. Then we found out actually it's not because the forwarders couldn't, because China government was controlling some of the oil prices. So the prices were fixed, so the carriers are not charging the lower bunker rates, lower fuel rates, sorry. So then we realized that there's more to it than that. So the message I'm trying to say is sometimes we are very quick to pinpoint back to the forwarders for not giving back, but there's more than what it meets the eye, right? So we also learned that, so that was a very good experience from the oil perspective, and we obviously got some good savings and we have some kind of model working in. That's one point. Second point, very quickly, when we use the word collaboration, right? One of the things is that the partners normally come back to, even internally we use the word collaboration very often. I think it's one of the most abused words, honestly speaking, right? But the difference between collaboration, so I had a discussion with somebody very senior within the organization. He or she said to me, we collaborate. So I told that person, collaborate is not, let me rephrase it, working together doesn't mean collaborate. We work together doesn't mean we collaborate, right? So with the partner community today, we work together. There's only a very few occasions we collaborate. So what's the difference? Right? So just food for thought. I don't think we have time to talk about it, but
I was in Manila 2 weeks ago and someone challenged me on the word collaboration. So during one of the breaks, I went and looked it up in the Oxford Dictionary. There's two meanings for it. The first one's quite obvious, but the second one is really interesting. It says, a willingness to work with your enemy for a greater outcome. I thought that was really interesting.
Thank you very much. Let's give the panel a big round of applause. Thank you very much.